Hello everyone up there in magic internet land. It is Wednesday night, probably the 8th of April, 9th of April, somewhere around there. Welcome. We've been continuing on our work. This is session number 2 of the Hoshinden meditation and Qigong sessions Wednesday night during this awesome time. I hope that you are settled. You've had a good chunk of time since Friday, the philosophy and theory class, to absorb everything we've talked about, and you're going to join me tonight for another 1 hour continuation of our breathwork practice. Following on from last week, from Wednesday last week, we're going to be continuing our bone breathing, marrow breathing, Qigong, and we're going to take that into the feet. First of all, I'm just going to take a little moment as we breathe in through your nose, down into your belly, and out through your mouth. Just let ourselves get started and allow some of the other people to join the video. So first of all, as we do in class, those of you who've been in my normal classes, you know this really well. You're closing your eyes, just softening your vision, breathing in and out, in through the nose, down into the belly. Out through the mouth. And the breath is the great natural breath. So that's where we apply effort on the inward breath. And the outward breath, the exhalation occurs under its own pressure, its own tension. I'm coming to you from lovely downtown Forest Studios, again. Didn't make it back to the dojo this week either, but let's see how Friday goes for that plan. So you've got me in the Forest Studio once again. I'm going to start off by just using our breath to help us become aware of the physical sensations around. So as you're breathing in through your nose, down into your belly, you begin just by listening to the sounds that you can hear close by, the sounds that are with you in the room. As you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Maybe the sounds of your own breath. While still breathing in and out, take your attention to the sounds that you can hear far away, outside the room, outside the house. Cars, maybe outside on the street. As you're breathing in through your nose, down into your belly, and out through your mouth. Just slowly becoming aware of the different physical sensations that are happening right here. As you breathe and you allow the breath to fill up the lungs, stretch the ribs, stretch through the diaphragm, the back, the muscles, the kidneys. And out through the mouth. Tongue sits on the roof of the mouth behind the top 2 front teeth. As you're breathing in and out. So now we're going to take our attention, instead of the sound, the audible observation, take our attention to the experience of the weight of the body on the ground, whether you're standing or sitting. Maybe you're sitting in seiza, sitting in a chair, on a cushion. You could be standing, listening. If you're somewhere, even if you're at work, and you listen to this on a podcast, wherever you are, you can just become aware of the sensation of your body weight pressing against the ground. I am seating, so I can feel that through my shins, my ankles, tops of my feet. Perhaps you might be standing. You could feel it through the soles of your feet, heels, ball of the feet, toes. As you continue to breathe in through your nose, down into your belly. And out through your mouth. Taking your attention to the sounds that you can hear. And the weight of your body at the same time. As you breathe, and adding in, you're listening to the smells that you can find in the room. What can you smell? What can you taste? And with your eyes closed or softly open, what kind of sights, colours and lights do you see? As you're breathing in through your nose down into your belly. And out through your mouth. So, these Wednesday night meditations are for all of you guys. And for me. For all of us, really. Video recording is great for this. It's something that we can put up later. People can go back to this and watch at their own leisure. And watch this later on down the track. Be on the page, be on the YouTube channels. An opportunity, especially at this time, to just take stock and listen and breathe and just become aware of the sensations around us, the sights, the sounds, the textures. What can you smell? What can you taste? What can you touch? What's the sensation of the body weight on the ground? What sounds can you hear close by? What sounds can you hear far away? So any of you who are Hoshinden students, this is not new. We do this in every class. If we sit down to practice meditation, maybe at the start of the class, it's before the bow, or if we do actually specify energy work and meditation practices in the class, this is usually how I'll begin. We sit down and we take a moment to explore the 5 senses of physical sensation and use those to just become aware of the happenings in the world around us. What we usually find, and it's a very quick exercise, is that when we listen to what we can hear, smell what we can smell, taste what we can taste, gain a sense of the body's weight and heaviness against the ground, and just softly gaze into our vision, eyes closed or softly open, to see the colours and the shapes. We find that here, in the middle of those happenings, there's some quietness. And it appears as if there's a space between us and the events and the experiences going on, not just in the world, but in our mind. Memories of the past, memories of what's happening tomorrow, thoughts of what's happening tomorrow. All of these ideas. We gain a little moment's reprieve here in the moment. Now those are just basic entry-level meditation skills. So if you've been studying Hoshinden for any length of time, you would have been used to these. They won't be new. That's an introduction, fundamental level. It's like the kindergarten level. To just enter, sit and watch. It's a form of what's called vipassana. the seated watching pose, the place of watching. And you don't have to be seated as such. You could just be stacking shelves and observing the sensation, the texture of the cans that you're stacking. You could be sitting in traffic in your car, holding on to the steering wheel, not moving, but very hyper aware of the texture and sensation of the steering wheel, and just aware of the things that are going on around you. The funny little scenes that are playing out in the cars, the sounds of the world around you. And there you are, you're sitting in the middle of traffic, in your car, and you're applying to sit, to watch, to observe. And that's the basis of Mahayana Buddhism, right there. That's the basis of most meditation. We take it off in a squirrely direction when we look for something beyond that which is occurring. So if you think about it, there's a trap. If you're using your mind to look for something that is beyond your mind, how can your mind ever possibly discover that? It's not the tool that you can use. That's like taking a microphone and using the microphone to measure how much light the candle is throwing into the room. That's just an incorrect application. There's nothing wrong with the tool. What you're looking for, that's just not where you're going to find it. So these purposes of introductory meditations like this, these forms of vipassana, don't think that they're easy. We just breeze through them. Do it for 6 months. That's hard. These forms are just to prepare us to be able to understand that there's lots of process, and the universe is nothing more than rhythm and process. And then beyond that, build the layers of consciousness. But there's rhythm and process. And I bet that you can hear right now something occurring. If you take a moment, you close your eyes, you breathe in through your nose, down into your belly. You can find some process at work. Maybe a sound. I can hear a car. Maybe you can hear a tap dripping. Maybe your own breath and the cycle of your own breath. But you will find a process. And then what you'll find is that there's a rhythm to the process. And the more that you can watch and become aware of that, the quieter your thoughts become as you're fully engaged in just watching, listening, tasting, smelling, sensing, seeing. And from that place, it's ready to begin more advanced study. So following on from last week, as I said, these Wednesday night sessions are an opportunity for me to get to talk to the whole group of Hoshinden students now and maybe into the future, and actually just really solidify these kinds of processes in a video format, in a recorded format. And you're welcome to join in at any time, but I will be building week by week by week. So I recommend going back if you weren't with us last Wednesday. I recommend going and reviewing after this the Wednesday video from last week, and this video will make more sense. So, if we got to the place where we're ready to begin, and you're breathing in through the nose, down into your belly, out through your mouth, we're going to quickly take our mind's attention back to our left hand. We're going to start with your thumb. We're going to skip very quickly through the activity that we did last week. So I'm going to take my mind, and as I breathe in and out, in through my nose, down into my belly, out through my mouth, I'm going to take my attention, my mental attention, I can't even find it, to the tip of my finger, tip of my thumb. And what I'm looking for, without really hunting, I'm just observing softly, is evidence of nervous system sensation. The more I look, the more my observation, the things divide under my observation and my gaze. And I can find that within a few breaths, I can start to experience a sensation of tingling and warmth at the tip of the thumb. And as I breathe in and out, I'm going to move my attention to the bed of the nail bed on the left thumb. And what I find is that I can experience this pulsing sensation differential between the bed of the nail and the tip of the thumb. I'm moving my attention now to the pad of the thumb, my left thumb. And as I breathe, I'm just observing what I consider is the pad of my left thumb under my mind's gaze. And I find that I can experience a sensation. It's quite broad. It's not specific at this point in time. I'd have to sit down for a few more minutes. If I take my mind and I quickly look at the pad and at the nail bed and at the tip of the finger of itself, the thumb, I can gain a sense that there is a difference in quality to these three areas, these three aspects. And as I breathe and as I just watch in my mind, conjuring up a 3D image of what it is that I perceive that I'm looking at in my gaze. I'm going to draw my attention down from the tip and the end of the thumb through the bone and the joints of the thumb, back towards the hand. And what I note in my mind is how the experience of sensation, the observation of that sensation differs. The joint quality differs from the experience and sensation of the bone. The bone differs from the sensation of the surrounding tissue. And if you were with us last Wednesday, this should be faster. You should be able to achieve this faster. If this is your first time doing this, I'm not going to go into great detail on that. You'll need to go back and watch the previous video, but I will walk you through vaguely. I should now be able to experience very casually a sensation of nervous system response or feedback for the entire thumb, whether I perceive that as a kind of heat or a pulsing sensation, a throbbing sensation, maybe in the bone, a tingling. It could be the experience of your own pulse. What you will find is that the thumb as an entity becomes more easily observable. And then you'll further divide it into sections of the thumb. The knuckle, the joint of the thumb, the bone, the tissue of the thumb, the pad, the fingertip, and the nail bed. The sides even. They all have slightly different sensational qualities. And what you might be able to experience, especially those who practiced this last week, is that the entire thumb itself takes on a sensation in relationship to the experiences of the other fingers. So now we're going to draw our attention to the other fingers on the left hand. I'm going to move through this very quickly. So I'm going to look at the left pointer finger. And in a few breaths, I'm going to observe sensation that arises slowly, starting off quietly. Just like if you start listening, what can you hear right now? And as you listen more and you penetrate more with your hearing into the sensation, it divides more and more quality and more specific subsections, and abstractions appear. So at first I don't hear anything, and then I realize I hear a few things and noise, and then I notice that the noise separates into human conversation and dogs barking and cars and a bin being wheeled down the street. And all those things become aware, but I become aware of all those things. But when I'm not listening for them, they're not there. And when I start, it's just a blur. And the same thing is true of physical sensation observation. When I start, it might just be a blur. The more practice, the more time I give this, the more I hone into specific areas of sensation, and the more I can identify areas in relationship to each other. So the left pointer, my goal, my breathing here, is experiencing sensation differing from the pad and the bed of the nail bed, and the tip of the finger, and the bones, and the joints and knuckle. Until after a few breaths, the entire finger takes on a vibrating kind of sensation for me. And if I differentiate it from my thumb, the two of them are easily separable in my mind. Identifiable and separable. They feel different. I move on to my left middle finger. And I start up at the pad, the nail bed, and the fingertip. And as I breathe, I'm just looking with my mind at that section of the finger. And the ironic trap is that I know I'm looking for something, but I have to just be casual in my observation. I have to be broad enough in my observing perspective to allow myself to realize there's already sensation going on there. I'm just not listening to it. I'm not looking for it. I'm not conscious of it. If I'm attempting to look for something that I think is the sensation, I might miss out on what's really going on. If I decide that I'm only going to listen for the red dog barking, I can't hear any red dog barking, therefore there's no sound. The question was incorrect. I could just listen very broad. So there's a difference between the intent of looking for something and just observing. And again, after I breathe in through my nose, down into my belly, and out through my mouth, I start to become aware of physical sensations around the tip of my left middle finger. I move my observation in my mind down through the bone of the finger, the joints distinct from the tissue. It takes me a few breaths. And now I just quickly observe the difference between the three fingers I've just spent time observing. The left middle finger, the left pinky finger, the left thumb. I should be able to jump from each of those quite quickly, identifiably in my mind. And as I move to one, I should suddenly experience the sensations of that finger. Various forms of nervous system feedback. You get really good at this. You can gain a wonderful sensation of air temperature and its distinct difference to the temperature of the skin. I know I'm moving very fast on purpose. Moving on to the fourth finger, the ring finger on the left hand. I'm going to start, as I breathe, having my attention up at the tip of the finger, the nail bed, the pad. And slowly, some types of sensation start to arise in my mind, in my experience of that finger. And then I move my attention onwards through the bone of the finger. The knuckles, the joints, distinct from the flesh, the tissue of the finger. Breathing. And then finally on that finger, an experience of the entire finger as a unit. Separated from the experience of these other digits on my left hand. So I can think about my thumb, and immediately when I start thinking about my thumb, conjuring up images of my left thumb, observing sensation of my left thumb, it starts to divide into separate sections. Sensations of the bone, a pulsing sensation, sensations of the pad distinct from sensations of the nail bed. And then I move my attention to my left pointer finger, and immediately experiences of the left pointer finger become arising. And they're distinct, they're different from the thumb. And then I move to the left middle finger, and the same is true. And I move to the left ring finger, and the same is true again. Now I take my attention to my left pinky finger. I start with my attention around the tip, the pad, the nail bed. I breathe in and out, and I just observe. As if I'm looking for something, but I have no idea what it is. As if you're standing outside a cafe on the street, and you're absolutely certain that something's about to happen, but you have no idea what it is that's about to happen. And so you're just kind of keenly taking in all the information, because you're not sure what it is that you're meant to be looking for. Take that stance with your meditations. Learn how to keenly observe without looking for something. It's like the difference between hearing and listening. Yeah. So I can begin to experience tingling sensation on the pad of the left pinky finger. And that's distinct from a throbbing sensation on the nail bed of the left pinky finger for me. I'm still breathing in through my nose, down into my belly, out through my mouth. And now I'm ready to take that further through the bone, observing the different sensation of the bone of the left pinky finger from the joints, the knuckle, the tissue, and finally the finger as a whole. And I compare that to my experience of the other 4 digits. All 5 digits on the left hand now. And I just take my mind and one by one, I observe the fingers that we've just walked through. And I start with my thumb. And it should be quite quick to re-evoke a sensation of this distinctness. And then I can experience that as separate from my left pointer finger, which already I can experience sensation of the bone of the finger and something different between the pad and the nail bed of the finger. And then I just take my mind and move on to the left middle finger. And the left ring finger. And the left pointer finger. Left pinky, sorry. And now the left palm, an experienced sensation of the palm itself, distinct from the fingers. So I take my mind's attention and I observe the area of my left palm under my mental clarity. Curious, what will I find there? Straight away, for me, a sensation of numb, which sounds interesting, I know, but numbness is a sensation. And kind of a numbness, the base of these fingers where they join the palm. And this heated, tingling sensation in rings around the actual palm. As I continue to breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. And now I can start to become aware of the different experience of sensation of my palm to each of the fingers. If I just draw my mental perspective back slightly, so now I'm thinking about my whole left hand from the wrist up. The whole hand becomes enlightened in a sense. This refreshing feeling of activity. Life is happening in my hands. There's blood flow, there's electrical pulses, there's chemical changes. there's a warmth. And it's because of that warmth it allows me to feel and become aware of the coolness of the air. If the air and I were the same temperature, it wouldn't feel cold. Okay, and there's the left hand. So I said we went through that quick, and that still took, look at the clock, that was still like 20 minutes. So if you are new to this kind of activity, this particular type of Qigong meditation, go back and watch the video from last Wednesday where I walked through the sense of physical sensation observation on each of the fingers and then up the hand through the elbow and the shoulder. You can do that on the right hand. Go back and watch that and practice that. So this was just meant to be a reminder of that. You have a look at your hands, compare them to each other, and just observe colour differences, experience of difference in quality. Can you look at the different sections of your left hand, your fingertips, pads, the palm? Can you very quickly, as you look there and engage mentally, can you gain a sensation of the tingling, maybe the pulsing sensations that you were finding as you very astutely looked one by one? And then compare that to your right hand and look at each of the fingertips. And you might find that it's not as quick, it's not as easy to look at a fingertip on the right hand and suddenly experience those sensations as it is on the left hand. Well, then you need to do another half hour of work on your right hand. And you need to do that repeatedly on every part of your body until it should take no more than a couple of breaths. And really this is the work for the black belt crew, the black belt units of study. A couple of breaths should allow you to take your mind's observation to an area of your body and begin experiencing nervous system feedback and sensation. And this is how you actually develop what's called embodying the flesh. So these are very classic Qigong activities, bone washing, marrow washing, the idea that you can take your mind and literally meditate as a form of experiencing some nervous system sensation and feedback of the body as a form of meditation and dwelling in the flesh. Fascinating statement, but you want to take your mind and expand into your body. So often through chronic illness or acute pain, we tend to retract. And in Chinese medicine, talk about the Shen retracting, like we retract the spirit from the flesh as a good metaphor. We want to get away from the experience of pain. So we don't want to take our mind into that. If you have a throbbing injury because you've injured your finger, you try to get away, you wince away from the pain. You don't want to take your mind into that place. But something that we get from Mahayana Buddhism, from Shakyamuni Buddha, 2,700 years ago, is that when we are capable of actually applying observation and conscious gaze to a point in the body, that observation and the experience of what we call pain can't coexist. And so part of his work and part of his demonstrations to his students was just that if you are finding immense pain, maybe your shoulder is greatly sore, genuinely and honestly look, sit and breathe and observe. Take your mental gaze and observe not just the experience of pain, right into the center of the pain. Look for the pin right into the middle of that. And the same is true emotionally, but we're just talking physically at this point. And what you will find is that under your gaze, under some time, that which you called pain divides into separate things, and you might end up calling them sharpness and throbbing sensation. And you go, that's interesting, because that's no longer what you thought it was when you called it pain. Now it has a distinct quality to it. It starts to build a more kind of deep relationship. And you continue, you choose one. Maybe you'll choose to look then in this hypothetical shoulder analogy. Maybe you choose to look then at the sensation, right in the heart of the sensation that you call tingling or sharp. And as you watch that, you'll find that after a few breaths, over some time, maybe over 10 minutes, the experience that you called sharp further divides into sub-separate sections. It's just layers of abstraction. And maybe you'll call them cold and numb. And that's interesting. That's a scientific endeavor, just continually explore what do you mean by the qualities of these terms. And as you look, what is a fascinating experience, and now's a good time to do it the next 6 months, you start to find that the experience of pain actually vanishes. The experience of sensation doesn't vanish, but you refine what it is that you are looking at, and then you subcategorize them. And suddenly, rather than pain, you realize you're actually feeling immense cold, which is a different sensation from pain. And through the wonder of brain power, once you kind of relabel it cold, it loses some of its propensity. It loses the shaky full-onness of pain and turns into the dull achiness of cold. And even cold will further divide, and it just continues in this kind of way. So these activities are an opportunity, these meditation activities are an opportunity to effectively live out into the flesh and penetrate the flesh with the thinking mind, with the conscious observation of physical sensation. So today we're not going to get into more philosophy about that. We're just going to do the next activity. So I just walked you through that on the left hand, 20 minutes of doing that. Hopefully by now you've got a rough idea of how to do this. It's okay if you're still only experiencing very vague sensations. That's fine. Remember that numbness is a sensation. If it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to identify it. You couldn't say, oh, my leg is numb. You'd just be like, sorry, you wouldn't even strike up in conversation. It wouldn't exist. There's a difference between something that you can reach around the edges of, but not penetrate to the center of, like a cloud. That might be what you call numbness, or what we've called numbness. That's different to complete obliviousness. Yeah, those aren't the same thing. So don't be surprised if numbness is a sensation that you often find during this process. We're going to take our attention now to our feet. So we're going to apply the same kind of activity to the feet. I'm going to start off by breathing. Those of you who've been joining as we go, back at the start of this, we're doing some breathing exercises to get us in the mode, so you might have to catch up. Breathing in through your nose, down into your belly. Out through the mouth. As you become aware again of the things that are occurring, the processes and rhythms that are happening right now. What can you hear? I bet things just came into audible range for you, hey? And as you're breathing, what can you smell? Subtle. What can you taste? What is the feeling of your body weight as you observe the pressure of your body meeting the ground? Physical pains, sensations. And whether your eyes are closed or open, what can you see? Even if but colours or shapes behind the eyelids. Patterns. Hazes of colour. And hopefully what you find is that by doing nothing more than just letting yourself apply your whole mental attention to the feedback of the 5 physical sensations, you kind of grow between you and events. A little gap. A separation between right here and a story of the past. A separation between right here and what's happening tomorrow. Separation between right here and all the things that you would have done today, but blah, 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 blah. one of meditation's best kept secrets is that the experience of life is incredibly boring. And I say it with the greatest honesty. I don't mean boring in terms of not worthwhile, but very normal. When you really just listen to sounds and experience weight, pressure, and taste and smell, there's not a lot of drama going on. There's not a lot of great hero adventures. There's not a lot of incredible stories involving villains and righteous heroes. There's just kind of normal, mundane things happening. There's some cars driving by, maybe a bird. There's some scents in the air. I can smell some floral, flower scents. There might be the taste of dinner. Or maybe something's in the air, some incense that you're burning, or you can almost taste the meal that was cooking earlier. An experience of the body, the way that the skeleton supports the weight of all of the flesh and draws it into the ground. These things are amazing, very normal, very boring when you compare them to the stock market or Star Wars or the great theories of the universe. These things are fun, but they're different from just the normal day-to-day thing going on. And they're just tools. If you're looking for quiet rhythm and stability, maybe if you're feeling a bit anxious, or if you find that sometimes you can't sleep, you become quite wired, just lie there in bed, breathe, and listen for the things you can hear. And you'll probably wake up 8 hours later. So, now that you've done that, we're going to move on to the feet. So we're going to start with my right foot, just to throw you guys from the left hand. And I'm going to start with my right toe. Now, it doesn't matter if you're standing or sitting or, cartwheeling or paragliding right now. If you're working, you'll probably find this even easier because the movement will make this very obvious. I'm sitting on the ground. I'm going to take my mind's attention. So I breathe in through my nose, down into my belly, and out through my mouth. I'm going to take my mind's attention to my right big toe. And I'm practicing the thing we just spoke about before. I am just observing. I don't know necessarily what it is I'm looking for. Like my analogy before. If you knew that something was about to happen on a street and you run out and you stand on the street but you don't know what you're looking for, you're very aware, you're hyper aware, but you're not quite sure what you're meant to be hyper aware of. And so you're just taking in all the information. Use that analogy and look at your right big toe from that same perspective. And just be hyper aware of your right big toe. You're not even sure what it is you're looking for, but there's something going on. There is a process. There is a happening playing out in your toe. There's life, there's blood flow, there's cellular growth and decay, there's change, there's toenail quality and density that is different from the flesh. There's a bone in the toe that differs from the flesh, and the joints and how they differ. And what you will find is that the more you look at your right big toe under your mind's attention, you'll start to become aware of sensations, physical sensations. And I can never tell you what they are. They're different. Or rather, the associations we have to them are different. And so I can just speak to you about what happens for me, what my observation is. So I start off usually at the end of the finger or the toe, and I very quickly, within a few breaths, gain a sensation that is different from the nail bed to the pad of the toe, and different again to the tip of the toe and the sides of the toe. A different experience of the bone of the toe and the joints. And as I breathe in through my nose, down into my belly, out through my mouth, start to become aware of the whole right toe, right big toe. I'm going to move on my attention on the right foot to my second toe, moving away from my big toe. I start at the end of the toe. Again, maybe the tip of the toe distinct from the bed, the nail bed, distinct from the pad. And as I'm just watching and breathing, my experience of the toe broadens. An observation and sensation of the bone of the toe and the joints, the knuckles of the toe. And then that toe in its entirety and distinct from the right big toe. That's very important. Digit by digit, it helps because you have distinct references. Moving on to the third toe, moving away from the big toe towards the pinky, I'm up to the middle toe. Again, I start at the end of the toe, up towards the nail bed, the pad. Don't be surprised if you're struggling more to experience very refined sensation in the toes compared to the fingers. Just compare and consider how much fine motor skill and attention you give to your fingertips compared to your toe tips. And if this took you a little while to really be able to evoke observation and sensations of your fingertips, and you use them every day for refined tasks, just cut yourself some slack if you don't immediately experience refined sensation of the toes. Unless you're a magic toe pianist or some other skill that you haven't told me about. Again, you want to isolate in your experience, under observation, the separate components of that digit, that toe. The nail bed distinct from the pad, distinct from the bone and the joints. And then the whole middle toe has on its own independent unit, separate from the second toe and the big toe on the right foot. You should be able to jump in your mind's eye from the big toe to the second toe. You should separate, change of different quality experiences to the third toe. And now we're moving on to the fourth toe. Same thing, starting up at the end of the toe, towards the nail bed, the pad of the toe, breathing in and out. And for some reason for me that toe was easy, but the middle toe was really hard. Funny. So as you breathe in through your nose, down into your belly, really breathing so that it fills the lower part of your lungs. Your ribs should stretch. And as you're breathing, you're keeping your mind focused on your fourth toe on your right foot, observing sensation down the toe, maybe the bone distinct from the flesh, the joints, the knuckles. Then finally the whole toe as an individual entity. And just quickly in your mind's attention, go back to your right big toe and observe that briefly. Sensations become apparent. Move on to your second toe on your right foot. Third toe. Fourth toe. And now finally, onto your fifth toe on the right foot. Your pinky toe, your little toe. Again, starting up at the end of the toe is usually easiest. The nail bed of the toe, the pad of the toe. So for whatever reason, I'm finding this more difficult than all of the other toes and fingers that we've done. And there's a very general sensation. I'm not finding the usually easily observable difference between the nail bed and the pad. This is more like there's a vague sense of kind of pulsing, throbbing in the toe. Hard to identify the area. So I know that for me that says I just need to spend more time sitting and breathing and looking, observing at that toe until under my gaze it divides into sections. I will be able to experience a difference between the pad of my right pinky toe and the nail bed. And as it does so, I can move up through the bone of the toe and the knuckle of the toe. Back up towards the foot. There we go. And then in my breath, I'm going to quickly look and jump through each of the toes, my observation, just to remark them. So I go back to the right big toe. It should be quite easy to look there and really suddenly experience a surge of different sensations. Move on to the second toe. Make sure that it is distinct from the big toe. It should be unique. The sensations should isolate it from the other toes. Move on to the third toe, the middle toe on the right foot. And the fourth toe. And finally, the small toe, the pinky toe on the right foot. And then all the toes of the right foot, just as a group, separate and distinct from the bone of the foot and the tendons, the top of the foot, the base of the foot. And then draw your attention along the foot underneath. And you're observing in your mind sensations of the base of the foot, the arch. Sometimes this can even seem like a very soft sense of tickle sensation. As you just draw your mind along piece by piece of the underside of your right foot, the arch of the foot, under the pads, the ball of the foot, and splayed off to the sides of the underside of the foot. And continuing as you breathe in and out, drawing your attention to the heel of the foot. And just remember that analogy about walking out on the street. You absolutely know that something is about to happen, but you don't know what. And so you're just vigilant, but you're not quite sure what you're meant to be looking for. That's a good place to start. Otherwise you'll miss what it really is. As you continue to breathe, Our goal is just softly observing sensation across the whole foot, from the toes, under the foot, the arch, the heel of the foot, the sides of the foot, and the top of the foot, all the way back to the ankle. And then when you start to find that you can experience and explore different qualities of sensation, the heel does have a different experience when you take your mind there compared to the toes, compared to the base of the foot, compared to the top of the foot, compared to the sides of the foot, compared to the ankle, the bones of the ankle. As you breathe in and out, and I check the time. So as you're just breathing, you just softly let your mind wander back into the room, back to the experience and sensations around you. Maybe the temperature in the air, maybe the sounds you can hear. Sensation of your body weight, the pressure of your body meeting the ground. And you just softly open your eyes if they have been closed. And you just continue your breathing. And we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to wrap it up with some explanations. It's hard to keep my eyes open. These activities are as complicated as you need to get in your meditations. You can take your meditations into incredible feats of mental agility if you want, and that's great. They provide different kinds of experiences and skill sets. If you are wondering what meditation is, this is meditation. In its literal form, this is dhyana. So dhyana is to observe, the meditative state, the state of watching. But think of it more like hypervigilance, soft watching. You're not looking intently at something with a goal in mind as such. You're just observing. So even the form meditation we did tonight, this activity, is still many layers down in illusion in what meditation actually is and what's really going on there, because we were still keenly looking for something. We were looking for general experience. And if you really want to get back to, and you want to abstract right back to just the primary introduction of meditation, and ironically this is the most basic level of meditation, but it's usually introduced as one of the most advanced levels of meditation. There isn't a goal for your observation. You're just keenly observing, but without a particular agenda in mind. So you're not even necessarily looking for something, and it is in that way that you will find things. Things suddenly become apparent to you. A sensation of an injury that you had forgotten about that brings back certain memories. Or the sudden realization that you are really cold. And then you go and put more clothes on and not die and freeze to the death. All these little things that go on where we're simply allowing the mind to take a break from its constant categorization of the physical reality, and actually to take stock on the data it already has coming in, that we often don't take the opportunity or the time to really sit with. Imagine if you sat and you woke up and it was 24 hours later, and you spent the entire 24 hours just kind of observing. I wonder what kind of depths your observation would have travelled. Really, what would have happened? Like maybe you would have found that you could clearly hear the entire conversation going on the street. You could hear every word, every inflection, as if they were standing right next to you. And that's not because you have suddenly through meditation developed super hearing. All you've done is been able to access the processing of the hearing that all humans already have. If you are practicing this in vision, if you're taking, sometimes there's meditation activities of soft vision. This is really good for people with eyesight problems, especially short-sighted. If you're sitting and you're just staring, but just in observation, not in a daydream, and you find you're practicing observing, not looking so much as just kind of seeing, it's useful if you put a sign 100 meters away, or what's the furthest thing that you can look at? Maybe there's a number on a letterbox of a house down the street that you can't quite make out from here, but you can see vaguely that there's some kind of numeral or a word there. You sit and just see, and over time what you will find is that your ability to make out the contrast of those letters and for them to come into focus will just continue to increase. Under the division of this gaze, what originally starts as just fog starts to take form and then have reference mentally. And it's in that way, these are called siddhi. And siddhi in Indian terms are, Hindu terms, are mystical powers, but they're all related to the physical form. So the mystical sensation of heightened hearing, heightened vision, heightened cellular response, heightened cell healing, heightened blood flow, circulation experiences. All these kinds of concepts which they get thrown into the mystical bag, often by people who have never bothered to sit down and actually try out any of the activities from the past. And these things are written about in books. You could fill warehouses, the number of books that are filled with these concepts. But often they're presented, when they're really presented, they're very boring. You know? They're very normal. And it's in the normality that we get caught out, because we're busy being told we should look for something special. And we forget that what is normal is special. It's just a matter of perspective. So I hope that was wonderful and fun for you and useful. Obviously, the goal of these meditations is both to develop everyone, the Hoshinden students, and everyone who wants to develop their abilities and their skill, their jutsu in meditation and qigong. It's part of their Hoshin study. This is a heavy body of work that the black belt levels involve. So you get a pre-start to that. But also during this time, where we're home and we are moving into winter especially, it's a very good time to find out whether your embodiment, you're living out into the flesh through your mind, really embodying the physical flesh with your conscious effort, whether that does anything for you. Maybe you could set a little experiment. Find out, are you warmer this winter in your core the more you could experience the sensations of your fingertips? And maybe that's because both you are able to increase circulation to your limbs, and also because you suddenly realize you're freezing and you go and put more clothes on. But either way, maybe just an experiment. See if it's of benefit to you. Or perhaps, is this an opportunity for you to calm anxieties if you find it hard to fall asleep at night and you're busy thinking about the future or the past? Just sit and just listen to the things you can hear. And just keep listening. Don't even categorize them, just hear them. Don't put them in. There's a dog, there's a car, there's a blue car, there's like a person, he's 6'1", probably talking to his neighbor. Just hear them, don't categorize them. Find out if you wake up 12 hours later and it's daytime and you forgot when you fell asleep. And just see if you can find where the value for you lies in these activities. And I can answer questions about metaphysical concepts relating from these at other times. But this video series at this point is more about the actual practical application, because there's 100 billion books under the sun talking about the philosophy, and not often a book that literally just says, sit down, close your eyes, think about your thumbs. Okay, good. Now think about another finger. And the entire book's just filled with that. And then you realize at the end that, oh, that's all I had to do all along. Who'd have thought meditation isn't so hard? Hope you have a good night. I'll leave it there. I'm going to stick around on Facebook after this for a bit. So if you have any questions or comments, comment onto the video post when it goes up. or make a new post on the page. I hope that you're having a good week and that the wintry cold has brought you in to warm foods and good soups. And I will see you on Friday, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, Friday night, for our Hoshinden Philosophy and Theory class, session 3. Woo! See you then, guys. Bye.